And welcome to another fun episode of Photoshop Party with Mr. Dan Holmes. I see a lot of fresh faces out there today. First timers.
Arthur.
Welcome, Arthur. Not Art, Arthur. Art's looking at his thing going, wait a minute, I've been here before. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for being here. If you want to shoot questions through the chat room, you can do that. Or if you want to scream out questions to Dan, he loves being interrupted because it makes it sound like everybody's listening to him. And which I fell asleep last time when my computer crashed and I lost all my internet for like 5 minutes of the last program. Things that just happen to go wrong every time, but that's okay. Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you. No introduction needed. Everybody, this is Mr. Dan Holmes.
Okay, awesome. Hello, folks. Nice to be back. It's been a long time. What, 48 hours?
48 hours.
So as Michael mentioned, you can go ahead and unmute yourself so I can actually hear you groan or laugh. Either way, it's good. It beats talking to an empty screen. And jump in with questions at any time. Just keep the questions pertinent to the topic. And I like to say that if it's a story or an experience or if it's about a gear, save that for the break. But we don't have a break, so save it till later. So
and if your phone rings and you have to answer it, please mute yourself.
Bingo. Yeah, I just put mine on snooze. So Lightroom today, color crayons. I have some fun with that. Let me go ahead and switch over. Okay, first off, real briefly, is there anything burning that any of you want to cover today? We can do this for about 3 or 4 minutes. Terrence, since you're on your phone, you're busted. Do you have anything that you'd like to cover today?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple. I wrote down a couple questions.
Awesome, Kevin.
I did an import the other day and ended up with a couple of keywords, and they might be coming from a preset, import preset that I created. So how do you edit a preset that you have?
Oh, okay, edit presets.
And then the other is there a way when you're in the basic module doing developing in the basic module to toggle your changes on and off? So I can see a before and after. When I'm making a slight color adjustment, I want to see where I was to where I am.
Yes. Yes. I almost never use it, but yes, there is. And so we'll
those are my two.
Fumble through that, but that's quite cool.
Okay.
Two really good things. Anything else?
If you have images already on your computer and you want to put them into Lightroom or import them into Lightroom, can you show that real quick, like one folder?
Okay.
How to import one folder that's not
add from computer. Yes.
Thank you.
That's not color crayons, Mike.
Then I'll wait for color crayons.
We went over that on Tuesday, Michael.
I fell asleep, okay?
At least you're honest.
Yeah. Okay, good. Anything else? Okay, well, let's screen share and jump into the process. Desktop share. Let's get to Lightroom. There we go. Okay, so where do we go? Okay, again, this is not a pre-scripted presentation. I will go through here as it goes, and please do jump in at any time with questions. So we have jumped through. We've spent 2 good sessions on working in the library, and have a pretty good handle on importing metadata, keywords. Kevin, I was delighted to hear you use that keyword. And so right now, are there any questions regarding the library? I've had a couple of good ones come through on email. So everybody's fairly clear on the flow of Lightroom, around and around and around, and importing. We'll jump right into first Michael's question about how to add something from your computer. So we're going to go here and remember how to do this. Click on import, Mike.
Okay.
The window opens, and here you can navigate to any drive on your system that you have currently being read by Lightroom. Okay, let's see, here's my hard drive. I might have something in here. Open it. Okay, there's just some prints there that I have in a folder for Bay Photo. I'm going to pretend that they aren't imported already. So all you do, Mike, here is you navigate to the drive, and then you come up here and you click Add. And Add means it's already on your computer, and you're just adding it to Lightroom. And then when you come on over, you have a reduced amount of options over here. You can, at this point, you can't rename because they're already named at the import. And you can create smart previews, and you can add a preset and some basic metadata and a couple of keywords. And once you click Add, then all you have to do is hit import, and you don't have to worry about where you're going to put it because it's going to recognize where it is on your computer, and it will show up here now on Lightroom.
Thank you.
There's Mud, Mike.
Got it.
Awesome.
Do you
Okay.
ever do that after you've like saved it with a different name under Photoshop and it doesn't go back into Lightroom? Do you ever go bring it in this way?
You could. It's easier there to synchronize.
Oh, okay.
Do I need to show synchronize again?
I was doing something when I was listening to the episode too, so I need to go back and watch that.
Okay.
'Cause I think you covered that, I'm sure.
Yeah, synchronize is right click, synchronize folder. And if you have done any changes on the computer, or for the times when I don't know why, but it goes from Photoshop back into your folder and it doesn't show up in Lightroom,
Right.
then I use synchronize folder.
And then it just brings it in.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
It will clean up. It will delete ones that you've deleted off. If you're using the Finder to delete,
Okay.
it will delete them from Lightroom and it will bring in the new ones. I use this all the time.
Okay.
Okay, and when you have the, it's also a help when you have the question mark of death.
Oh God, yeah.
Everybody raise their hand who's ever had the question mark of death. Okay. All right. So, anything else we didn't cover on library? You guys want me to get out of library quickly? Okay, so now we're going to go into develop today. And some of you folks know a lot about the whole develop thing. Hutch is one. Hutch teaches this. So good to see you here, Hutch.
Good to be
Now,
here.
what's that, Mike? Or Hutch?
We've learned something new.
Okay. So now remember when I import with a preset. So everything comes in. Let me close my collections here. Everything comes in pretty well, almost. It's got a good shot of being done already. So this already has the preset applied, and you can see here, oh, this is an older preset. But here, if I go back and hit reset, there is the raw image. That's how it comes in raw. I can apply my preset here.
Wow.
Boom. Done. Okay. That's the beauty of importing with a preset because it comes in pretty well finished already. Okay, but let's take it back, reset to a raw file. Okay, again, with Lightroom, we'll close the presets here for a minute. with Lightroom, even with the develop module, let's get to, how about this guy?
Does it look vaguely familiar, Dan?
Does it ring a bell?
Just a little.
Okay, let's get this 4 stars here. All right, you guys, a few of you remember this spot. Hey, Kevin.
Yep.
Oh, you need a DNG.
Where were you?
This was a PPC workshop.
Yep. I have a
We
picture
did.
of you guys standing in the foreground there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, oh, look at all this work done. I'm going to, for examples here, I'm going to create a virtual copy. Now, a virtual copy just gives me another chance to go to work on it without changing everything that I've already done on this picture. One switch, there we go. See, I've already created quite a few steps on this. But as for this demonstration, I don't want to start all over again and lose those. So we're going to come here. Now again, clockwise starts here. We'll start on history. Snapshots is pretty cool. We'll talk about that in a minute. Presets are a lifesaver. We'll talk about that in a minute too. Navigator, again, it's a great tool. I almost never use it. Okay, probably missing some functionality, but just in my workflow, I don't really use it. Okay, there's really nothing across the top. We are in the develop mode, and then we start getting into the nuts and bolts. Histogram. Everybody should be at this point pretty well aware of what a histogram is. Anybody need a definition of histogram?
I'm good.
Okay, I think this is pretty awesome. We don't need any antihistamine. There's a couple of cool things on the histogram. You can turn on your highlights and your shadows, and it will show you actually where you are dark, or the same thing. Boy, there's a lot of juice in that file.
Mm-hmm.
This was late. Anyway, if it was blown out, that would also show as black. And again, Lightroom is really nice because you can Command Z back as far as you want to go. I don't use the histogram too much. There's people that will set their black point and their white point using the histogram. Personally, I don't really do that, but it's quite a good option. For right now, we're going to skip all these fun brushes, and these things are really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Except for red eye. How many people use red eye reduction?
Never.
Never. Has anybody ever used it?
Not in
Not
Lightroom.
me.
No. It's probably a good tool, but I don't ever use it. So as we come down, we've got your temperature, your color balance, tint. You know, I think about the only time I've really used tint was to kind of correct some pictures that I'd shot in Bolivia through a windshield, and I was actually able to get rid of the tint of the windshield by playing with tint. Otherwise, personally, I don't do too much with tint.
Wash hands.
Wash hands. Exposure. Oh, there's our highlights. Okay. Exposure, pretty self-explanatory. Brighter or darker? I don't do a whole lot here with contrast on the slider. Personally, I will come down, and I like high contrast, so I generally come down here and use a strong contrast curve.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be muted.
Okay.
Maybe we'll be very careful with that airplane.
What?
The airplane up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Use a small one. I don't know where the small one is.
Whoever that is, if you could mute, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Highlights, I tend to drag my highlights down and my shadows all the way up. I will add a little bit of whites and a little bit of blacks. See, there I go. I've got my black point set. I like, again, I don't do a whole lot other than with color and contrast. So let's get back here and turn those things off. There we go. Texture is a relatively new slider, and it is pretty awesome. It combined with clarity can do quite a nice job of sharpening the image to where it doesn't look like it's sharpened. So I will add anywhere from 12 to 20 texture and then bump up my clarity a little bit. Dehaze is also pretty awesome, but it can be overdone either way. I'll add just a touch of dehaze. Vibrance, I like to add a bit, and saturation, just a touch. You notice how scientifically these are all measured here. Okay, I've already done my tone curve. The cool thing about this is you can actually do your selector button and you can come in and you can selectively adjust your curve here. Don't do that very often because it tends to just get weird. I'm Zing back. And you can also come in here and, like any curve on Photoshop, you can grab and you can adjust your curves here a little bit. And sometimes I will actually do that. Down to HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance. I use this all the time. Is everybody pretty much up to speed on these sliders?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No,
Did I hear a no?
you did.
Good. Okay. Let me turn this off here. Luminance, this is the brightness. You can come in and you can brighten or darken selective colors in the photograph. And sometimes shooting in the blue light in the evening, all you get is blues. There's no greens here. Not too much aqua. Quite a bit of blue. So, and if you double click on any of these buttons, they will reset to 0. Now the coolest thing is this little button here. If you click this, you get, let me go here, this cross and little target gizmo. You can come in now and select any color and mouse up, and it's going to brighten those colors. And you'll see it took yellow and brightened it all the way up. And I'm
Sorry, Dan, is that new?
No.
Okay.
Oh, Arthur, this thing is awesome.
Gotcha.
That's worth your price of admission today.
Yes, it is.
This is so cool. And if you'll notice, it reached into orange and yellow.
Yeah.
And as I drag it down, it drags them down. So this is a really cool function. Now I'll darken my blues a little bit. Okay. So that is luminance. It covers brightness of the color.
You dragging your cursor down, or you said you were using the down?
Oh, you can either drag your cursor down, mouse click and drag the cursor down, or I use my wheel.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm going, huh?
Oh, okay, good.
All right.
I'd use my mouse wheel. Let's see. Do I have another image here with a little better range of color? Okay. Let's work on this guy here. There's a few more colors. Virtual copy. Created. Go back to reset. Okay, there's the raw. Okay. Exposure looks good. Contrast is good. Take my highlights down, my shadows up, add a little whites. I like my blacks, personal choice. Texture, clarity, dehaze, woohoo. Vibrance. Does everybody know the difference between vibrance and saturation?
No.
Okay.
Probably not.
The they're basically the same as I understand it. They influence the concentration of the color. Vibrance is less skin tones, because it's better to use vibrance if you have people in the picture, because otherwise you get the Velvia bright orange skin. Okay. So I'll use a little bit of both. And, you know, you can overdo it easily, and you've seen them on.
Vibrance definitely enhances the blues a lot.
Yeah. So I do just a touch of both. It's really easy while you're working in it to get over enthused about the color, and I can look back at it later and I go, oh, what was I thinking? That is way too hot. And sometimes I'll come back in and tone it way back down. Okay, so there, my contrast, I'm going to add more shadows in here. See how it lightens up those darks. Take my shadows down. That's maybe a little too much blacks. Again, notice how scientifically this is done. Luminance. So here, I want to darken these oranges here, make those pop a little bit more. I want to bring out these greens. And if you'll see, if you look at the luminance right now, it is highlighted. You can see that it's highlighted next to green. Now it should be highlighted to blue. Here it should be highlighted to orange. So can you see that? I'm going to lighten my greens. Woo! And I want to bring up these yellows. And I want to darken my blues, my sky a little bit. Okay. Sharpening is a good deal. It's a good thing to discuss. Lightroom does a default, and here it defaulted at 40. Mark Metternich had a really good point. He says, okay, if you're working in Lightroom and then export a sharpened file into Photoshop, you've already sharpened the entire file. And it doesn't necessarily allow you to do localized sharpening inside Photoshop. And I went, oh, damn, that makes total sense. So now I tend in my presets, I've got my sharpening set to 0. And then I will sharpen in Photoshop, because I can add layers and I can sharpen specific parts of the photograph inside Photoshop with the layers. Okay, back to saturation.
Question, Dan?
Yes, please.
I just want to mention that I use a similar technique where I sharpen in Photoshop, but I use the high pass filter, and then I blend it in as a layer, and
Great.
that really creates a subtle sharpening that doesn't really give you the kind of artifacts that that regular sharpening does. I'm not sure if that helps anybody else.
Yeah, I will try that, Arthur. I've heard about that. I've just actually never used it. I will generally sharpen the foreground and then come back and unsharpen the sky.
Yeah.
Personally, yeah. Okay, so saturation, we're going to bump the saturation here of this yellow a little bit, and you can see the sliders move. Maybe a touch of the sky. Oh, good, I got some goobers there, and some green. So you can see, and here you can turn off the changes, this little flag here. So again, subtle, but substantial. Okay, so the sharpening in Lightroom is really quite good, and the noise reduction I found out is quite good also. Depending on the image, especially shooting at night. I do have the Nick noise reduction, which I've used about 10 times, but I just tend to use it here or in Photoshop. We good and clear so far on HSL. Here's the hue thing that I talk about, which I almost never use. And I may be missing out on something, but haven't needed it so far. Split toning is something that I just heard about, and it's pretty neat, actually. You've seen people turn sky colors substantially in Lightroom, and I go, how do you do that? Well, you do it here by split toning, where you have a choice of changing the saturation and hue of your highlights and your shadows. So let's pick the highlights. And all of a sudden, my sky is purple, or yellow, or green, or very blue. But actually, I've done this sometimes. And again, it's a way of doing a localized adjustment just on the highlights.
Okay, that was worth the price of today.
Nice, Mel. It's actually pretty cool. I've actually done it a few times, and you can really change the sky color if you have a very bright sky. Look at the difference here. Okay, and you can do the same in the shadows. Don't do that as much. Oh, you can see, oh boy, it turned really blue. Oh, wow.
That's kind of cool.
Kind of scientific here. Just pick and choose. Woo, woo, woo. Oh, yeah. This is the Montana colors there.
You can pick Mars, Jupiter, or Saturn.
Yeah, that's right. If you want to go back, you just put it back here. Actually, I might warm the shadows up just a little bit here. Cool. A little too much. Okay, I wouldn't necessarily do split toning in a preset or HSL in a preset. Okay. So split toning, pretty good tool, and I've actually just kind of figured that out. Actually, I didn't figure it out. I think I heard it on a Munch workshop. Lens corrections. This is actually pretty awesome. Remove chromatic aberration. I just leave this thing on now on every preset. There's really no reason not to use it, at least that I know of. This deals with aberration along lines of big color. And I don't really understand it, but this helps get rid of it. Enable profile corrections. This is pretty awesome. This will actually reach into the lens that you used. It has a lot of default lenses. It recognizes the lens from the metadata, and it will get rid of distortion and a little bit of the natural lens vignette. And you can see there's a lens vignette there, and now it flattens the image out and gets rid of some of the vignette. There are many times when I'm shooting with my 1635 that I actually like the distortion. It's not quite what your eye sees, and I like the tension that that distortion gives, so I will click it off. So I normally don't have that set on my preset. And here it is recognizing my Canon 28-300 and the profile of that lens. I rarely use these guys, but you can reach in further. Oh, that's actually pretty cool too. And adjust your vignette and distortion. I rarely use that here. Okay. So lens correction, this is a very good tool. And so my preset will always have chromatic done. And in this picture, I think I do like it with that set. Transform. This is awesome if you're doing anything architectural that needs straight lines. This little piece here saved me what, 2,400 bucks for a tilt shift lens. This takes the place of a tilt shift lens. Don't tell Jack Dakinga or the real heavy duty architecture guys, but just right here, I shoot some art reproductions. I'll hang them on the wall and photograph them, come in here, add the lines, and we can jump into that show in a example and get them absolutely 90 degrees square lines. This is awesome.
Do you have something you can demonstrate that on?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
This is so cool. But you don't really need it in landscape. So we'll close that for right now. Vignetting, awesome. Vignetting really is a good tool. Like almost everything, you can overdo it and you can go white. So I generally like to add a little bit of vignette. The midpoint drops it closer to the center. Roundness, I pretty much am always just happy with the way it is, but I will move that. And then the feather, I'll always add quite a bit of feather. Calibration, guess and check. This is the most current version of Lightroom. And there are some that will come in and just work additional saturation here in the calibration. I tend not to use it, but again, it's something that you can play with the sliders if you like it or not.
Just started playing with that, Dan, and I love it.
It's actually pretty nice. I have used, there are a couple of images where I've pumped the blue saturation here, and it works great. Let's see, let's add just a little more red. And I'm not sure of the science behind it. So we're starting to get a little bit hot here, but that's all right. So cool thing about Lightroom is it maintains all of your history stages, whereas in Photoshop it doesn't. Okay, so you can see we've done a lot of stages here, which is a lot more than I normally do because we're working through this as an example. You can come back here and go all the way back.
Is it true you can turn those on and off by line? Or is it like Photoshop where you have to go back and start over at that point?
You know, that's a really good question.
I thought I had heard that you can turn them on and off, but I don't know how.
I don't know how either. And actually, that might be nice to know. Snapshot history, clear history above this step, copy history step, settings to before. I've actually never used that. Yeah, generally I'll end up just kind of going back and starting over again. Is everybody clear on snapshots? It's the same as Photoshop. They're handy. I'll use them on occasion. And I can come back and then create a snapshot back here. Okay, and so here we can go from one to the other. Oh, good, and I put it in order.
So right click on one of those again. Copy history step settings to before. If you copy those and then create a snapshot somewhere, can you, like if you wanted to go from there up and get rid of the line below, if you were to copy this.
I'll go through and play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like there's something there.
So, okay. So what we've done now so far is all universal changes. It changes the whole thing on the image. Now we get to come up here to these guys where we can do individual changes or spot changes. And most of these have keyboard shortcuts. I'm using R a lot. That's crop. R, 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 R. It's not a pirate story. And there's the aspect, which is really quite cool, and I use this a lot. Here, this is locked to the original dimensions. This is unlocked. Locked and unlocked. So if I want to turn this into a panorama, I unlock it. If I just want to crop it and maintain the proportions, I leave it locked. And the keyboard shortcut for the lock here is A. So if you're doing lots of images, keyboard shortcuts are awesome. If you can see there, if you hit A, unlock A, it locks. A. So cropping is a good tool. We use it a lot. Now,
Dan,
yes.
you tend to crop more in Lightroom or Photoshop?
I'll do both.
Both?
I'll do both. Sometimes on a master image, I won't really crop it in Lightroom. And I may crop a version in Lightroom. And that way I always have my master uncropped. But it kind of just depends on the photo.
Okay.
I just posted a picture of a bunny rabbit the other day. I cropped it in Lightroom.
Okay.
So the answer is yes and no.
All good. Thank you.
Okay, so does everybody know about this?
And where are they?
That's going to cost you extra. Cycle through by hitting the 0 or the O. And it gives you different compositional guidelines. And so look here. And this is interesting. When I do a talk on composition, I'll pull up some of these guides and go, wow, this is why this picture felt good. And I'm looking at this now. I forget what this one's called, but I got this nice diagonal here, a diagonal coming in here, and a diagonal coming in here. So that's one of the reasons this picture felt good. Rule of thirds. I'm generally happier with the golden triangle, which this is, golden rectangle, which this is. Rule of thirds is up in here. And many times, if you put your subject in the rule of thirds, to me, sometimes it's too far out. But the golden rectangle, to me, I'll end up posting a little bit more here, and especially on a portrait or people. So again, cycle through. Here's the, whatever this fancy name is. Tool.
Whatever it is.
Golden spiral.
Or is that the Fibonacci?
Yes, that's the word I can never remember.
Yeah, I was having trouble with it.
Good. Golden ratio.
Which one of those rectangles is the golden ratio?
Good question. Triangle. So you can see it's much quicker to go through by using the 0 or the O. Diagonal. Okay. So I primarily use this now when I'm talking about composition. I don't use it too much when I'm actually working on the photograph.
That one where you have the triangle, the diagonal lines coming in, is very, very common for use on portraits. And it can be done for either 3/4 or full lengths, that one, yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
particularly once you go into a vertical image with that.
Yeah, this works. It works awesome. Use it a lot. Okay, now if you hit X when you're in a crop, it will toggle between vertical and horizontal.
That vertical crop looks great on your
X.
image.
Yeah, and hide. So I'll actually do that fairly often, is crop a vertical out of a horizontal. So again, nice keystrokes. And we can come back here to aspect and go back to we are as shot, and it will go back to the original. So that's cropping. It's a great tool. Photoshop does it really quite well. I'm going to turn off the crop. Okay, spots, cloning. Good thing about Lightroom is the cool thing is, see, there's quite a bit of dirt on my sensor. There's quite a bit of sensor dirt here. Let's go up. Oh, goobers. And so the thing is, that sensor dirt's going to be on every picture. So the healing brush works really quite nice. And if you, let's go back, get rid of those guys, spot removal, crop rectangle. So those spots are there. Go back to here. If I hit A now, it gives me, this is actually quite cool. It's a tool overlay to visualize spots. And look at that. There are those goobers. Okay, this is a nice tool.
Sorry, Dan, can you review that again as to how to spot the, how to create this?
Yeah.
Good, good. A, you can toggle off with the A key.
Ah, okay.
Okay, you have to go to you have to be in the crop or the healing tool to begin with, and the shortcut for that is Q. So Q is on. We've got a brush and we got clone and heal. I'll use heal more often than clone, but there are times when I do use clone. I pretty much use this tool in Lightroom for dust goobers. If I want to do any real cloning work or use the healing brush, I do that in Photoshop. The cloning in Photoshop is really much better. So A, okay, there's a goober there. There's a goober there. There's these guys here. Does everybody see that, or they need to make it bigger? Looks like there's one there. Oh, there's one over there. Is that one there? Okay, turn it off with A, and they're gone. And now if I hit H, H shows me everywhere I cloned out. So I also use the H key a lot.
And can you save that so that you can automatically spot other images?
Oh, Joe, that's another good one. Okay, so right here, I can now come across and select all these different images that are actually the same and hit synchronize. Check none, spot removal, and it will apply that same spot removal to every picture you have checked.
No way.
Oh, Eleanor!
That's
Just be,
awesome.
just be careful when you do that.
Oh, yes. It's still, yeah, Mike. Exactly. Okay, this is such a good tool and a big time saver. The thing, I guess we'll just do it here. Okay, so I'm going to synchronize that spot against all of these guys. And now I come into this guy. I can, if I've got Q selected, and I hit H, oops, get back there. You know, computers, they do exactly what you tell them to do. Q, H, where is it? No, there they are. Okay, well, it turns out I just did this across a whole series of 25 photos, and just pretend that now this is in the middle of a mountain and it cloned some of the sky into that mountain.
Hmm.
But you get the picture?
Yep.
Okay, then I just come select this and hit delete, gone. Select this, hit delete, gone. So I have done this where I have gone through and cloned or synchronized across 20 pictures, and then I'll go through really quickly, especially if it's a dirty sensor. There's a lot of these, and I'll go through and clean them up. So gone.
A question, Dan. Does
Yes.
synchronize mean that if you find, say, an additional spot and then remove that spot, that it adds that additional cleanup to all the other images that you synchronized? Or-
There's actually auto sync, which I haven't used.
If you have them all selected at the same time and you do that sync, then it will sync on all of them.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah,
that what you did?
There's an auto sync process here that I'd explain if I'd actually know how to do it, but I don't. So I will go ahead and finish my image and then synchronize them all the way across.
Michael, is that why you cautioned with the sync?
I was cautioning about what he said about putting the sky into the mountain.
Oh yes, it's
Yeah.
and it's
Maybe
actually pretty
or
funny.
trees, or if you got different photos, be careful where you clone.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
just
it
make
will
sure the
actually,
photos
yeah,
all
it's not that smart. It doesn't know the difference between a tree and a sky. But it's not a fatal problem because then I can come back through and clean them up pretty quickly. But this has saved hours and hours and hours of time. I'm seeing some nodding heads here, so that's a good thing.
It is.
Okay, so again,
If
The eel?
go up with a black lens approach that you use for astrophotography, that'd even be greater.
what was that, Terrence?
I say, if they could black lens your spots, that would be a great feature.
Yes.
Dan, real quick, when you were removing those spots, did you clone or did you heal?
I'm healing when I'm in the sky,
Okay.
and it's like the healing brush in Lightroom or Photoshop. That is, it's pretty smart. It doesn't do a hard clone, but we can also do a hard clone. You have a choice here. So we're going to clone,
Oh, there it is.
and you can adjust your feather and your opacity and size. Cool thing about the spinning wheel on my mouse is it will raise and it will shrink and enlarge the circle. Again, that's a handy tool. So we're going to clone. So I'm on clone now. We're 100%. And I'm going to come down here and clone that piece of sign right into the sky. So that's a pretty hard clone.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we'll do the same with heal. And we'll see how different it looks. Quite a bit different. See, healing takes whatever the magic is, it takes whatever's behind it and just softens it. Clone just brings it hard. Cool thing is now, get back there, Q again. I can highlight this guy and I can change my opacity. So there's some pretty good tools here. Healing brush in Photoshop, I don't think has opacity. A clone does. Okay. Shrink.
I think you have to use your Command Shift F combination to draw it.
There we go. While these guys are highlighted, it takes some of the different. When you're in the clone tool, there's some other keystrokes that don't work. Okay, red eye. We're gonna skip red eye. the graduated filter, which is a pretty good tool. And I've had people say, let's just go ahead and get rid of those. Those are too ugly here. Go on. Q. Okay. I don't think there's a keystroke for the graduated filter. The filter's pretty awesome. This allows you, people say, well, why do you use a grad in the field? Because you can just do it in Photoshop or Lightroom. Well, yeah, to a certain extent, but we won't get too much into that battle. So I'm going to choose the grad. I'm going to take my exposure down just a little bit, add a little contrast, take my highlights down. I'm going to come here and start about this point and drag down. Okay, and it darkens the sky and leaves everything else with a graduated, okay. And you can reset that, move it, you can tilt it. So this is a pretty handy tool to darken your sky. And that's a big thing for image comp. Dark skies rule, bright skies generally don't. And then you have all these great controls here. Shadows. You can change your color temperature.
Oh.
You can change this tint thing. Command Z. You can add all kinds of stuff here. We're getting a little extreme here. I think that's a little much. Maybe I want to start over again. Come up here to Effect and double click on Effect, and everything resets automatically to 0. Okay. So let's take that down just a little bit. And okay, so you got two options here, edit or new. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to come up from the bottom. If you hit the shift as you're dragging up your lines, it brings it up straight, which is actually quite a good tool. I don't want to darken that. I actually want to brighten that. Ooh, that's looking pretty good. Okay, I think I'll just leave it there. But I still got a whole bunch of dark shadows here, and I've got some, speaking of grads, I've got some grad darkage. I just made up that term. It works, grad darkage here. But I can't really do that with the graduated filter because that goes all the way across the sky. But I want to go in here and get rid of this grad darkage. Well, I've got my new favorite brush, which is this guy. I don't even know what it's called. And I've got a preset.
Brush.
What is it, Mike?
Adjustment brush.
This is the adjustment brush. This one's another. Hutch, what's this one called?
That's the radial, but Dan, go back to the grad for a second.
Okay.
I think you're missing a brush. Go back and get your radial and select your sky. Just click on the little dot on the sky so that you've got that active. Okay, now go over where you are new, edit brush.
Yeah.
And go to brush there. That's the grad brush.
Yes, and here I can come in and reduce that darkage here.
Exactly, and then if you click on the brush for a second, and then you will see there's an auto mask option there down below. There you go,
yeah.
Auto mask.
Yeah.
So now if you get a fairly good size brush, take your brush up a little bit in size. Go back down where you got the AB erase down below. Down below. Don't touch those yet. Okay, now increase that brush size down there, below where it says erased. There you go. Now just take your brush across just keep the target inside the inside the mountains and not on the sky. And you'll just go across and erase all of the, you don't even have to touch those. You're just erasing.
Yep. Yeah, the brush is actually a really good tool, and the masking is awesome. and you can brush out the effect that you've done.
That brush.
I'm going to jump into the radial brush, which is called, which I use a lot, and I actually use it more than I use the grad now. In the radial brush, I actually have a custom preset for shadows. Look at that. It's already set with the shadows all the way reduced. I'm going to bring my exposure up just a touch. Now the radial brush comes in.
I totally got lost when you jumped from one brush to the other brush. From
okay.
radial to the other. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Let's
Sorry.
rewind here.
Radio.
I got a hutch. So the grad gives you universal all the way across. And then you have some ability to adjust that grad by using the brush.
Right, that I got.
Okay. Now we come to the radial brush. You have two different other independent brushes. This brush here is like a brush in Photoshop. You can come in and I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit and just color this area.
Okay.
With the brush. Okay, and you can paint to your heart's content with that brush. And it works pretty well. And you can also auto mask, which really helps.
Dan, do you use the mask overlay to show precision? Like the little selection down there that says selected mask overlay that shows you what, like in red or green, which part of the image was the effect applied to?
You can. I tend not to myself, but you can. Let's see. I'm going to get back to dark edge. Okay. So the brush is similar to any brush in Photoshop where you can brush in lightness or darkness, and you have all these great controls. I find myself using the radial brush quite a bit. I find, to me, it's a good tool. Get rid of that. It comes in. I can easily turn this, make it bigger or smaller. I actually darken my skies with this now more than I use the grad, the grad filter. So now I can come in and add shadows and exposure. It's a little too much. And if I want to go a little bit further, I can. And, you know, I kind of like that effect, but I got some darkage over here. I got a little darkage down here. I'm going to bring that down just a bit. Duplicate. And shrink it. And shrink it. This works really nicely to brighten up that moose eye that's completely dark. You can put a very small little radial filter on the eye and brighten it up and sharpen it. Okay.
And
Can I help you out here for just 1 second so the folks don't get confused? The radial is a local adjustment tool. Within the radial, if you look at the top where new, edit, and brush is, that's where the radial brush is. So when you refer to the radial as a radial brush, it's really a radial adjustment tool with a brush that's an optional tool for brushing in more beyond your radial or brushing out part of your radial.
Yeah.
So right above your cursor up there to the right is brush.
Right.
The radial brush.
Yep. Okay, so here's where I've gone using the grad. And by adding the grad and the radial filter, I've brought out a lot more detail. And I find myself using the radial tool quite a bit more to get rid of the darkage from my grad when I use the grad. There is
Dan, as an alternative, would you use Nick Vervason?
You know, I don't use the Nix personally. Larry can help you on that a lot. I'm pretty much just Photoshop and Lightroom. Nix are great tools. I use Silverfix Pro, but that's about it. And there's great tools in Nick. I just haven't really adopted them into my workflow. Okay. So radial and the brush tool. Now, let's
And about 5 minutes, Dan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Crayons part 2 coming up.
Part 2. Okay, so we're down to 5 minutes. We've covered pretty much the circle. There's a really awesome thing right here, this range mask. And we won't get to that today, but it is very nice. If you've ever had the dark band in the sky from using a polarizer, this is a really good tool to help get rid of that. But we'll just leave that hanging for next time. All right, questions?
Dan, can you just talk a little bit about the hue box there right underneath the dehaze?
Yeah. Remember what I said earlier about hue? I don't use it. Okay, it's very likely a very good tool, but in what I do, I pretty much work with color temperature or brightness and saturation. I don't do much with hue, so I really can't tell you much about it. Okay, I'm sure there's something on the YouTubes that will explain that. Hutch might know it too.
Yeah, hue's used a lot for special effects and for black and white or monochrome photography.
Yeah.
And you'll find that when you get to using the local adjustment tools, it's kind of fun. Like if you want to change the color of your model's shirt, you can use the hue tool along with selection on the shirt and doing it just amazing. You just change a blue shirt to a red shirt at just a clicks. But that's kind of the next for Dan
Yeah.
to do it when you get down to those selections.
Most of my work, I'm working on pretty much natural colors or the way I see them. So for me, in my workflow, hue isn't a big thing. Black and white, there's quite a few very cool things now in Lightroom that are quite good as far as substituting for Silverfix Pro. There's a lot of different options here now in Lightroom. I could see myself using this instead of Silverfix Pro.
Why are they also pink?
Probably because of the hue.
Okay.
Is that the split toning that is still in the image?
Yeah, you remember who said that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right, Arthur. That's the split toning. Okay.
Only because I've done it to myself 100 times.
All right.
Hey, Dan, on the crop tool,
Yes.
how did you get the triangles again?
Okay. You can come up to Tools,
Yep.
Crop Overlay,
Okay, got it.
and here they are. Or you can cycle through them by hitting the zero O,
Okay.
and it's pretty awesome.
O is the,
O is the cycle through.
okay, great. Thank you.
Really nice. And again, all of these things, just punch buttons and try. And if you've got a DNG that you don't want to mess up your adjustments, make a virtual copy and play on that virtual copy. There's nothing here that will actually hurt your photograph.
Totally cool. Thank you, Dan. So that was a fast hour.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was.
Time flies.
Oh, yeah.
Having fun.
We didn't even touch on panoramas.
We'll get there. We will get there.
You didn't even get to the third row of crayons.
Did you answer all the questions that were asked at the
Oh,
front?
what do we got? Edit presets. Okay. Toggle changes. Oh, let's see. There we go. If you hit C, you can see it before and after. Or you X and Y. Actually, I rarely do these. But again, click on these and see. There's a before and after. Or a comparison between two images. Again, punch on these guys. There's a lot of good stuff. Facial recognition in Photoshop is actually quite good if you're photographing multiple times of the same people. Like I photograph Rotary meetings. I just get them all in the library now, hit facial recognition, and it drops their name into the metadata.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Very.
Very nice. And it gets smarter. It's even recognizing profiles now.
Wow.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's fun, everybody.
All right. We'll see
you,
everybody next Tuesday again.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
All right.
Michael.
Thanks,
Great seeing
everybody.
All right. Have a great day,
Fantastic.
guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy your
Everybody have a
weekend.
safe weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, let me read the chats here.